will start with my short presentation. And yeah, this was a conference in October, and we started with interesting point that we have, of course, 17 SDGs, and in the discussion and also in research papers, it is now a common thing that citizen science could contribute all of these single SDGs, and we tried to develop an approach to make this contribution visible, especially for all other actors from this field, which could organize or which could support actions toward sustainable development. This means especially policymakers and research funding organizations and so on. So the declaration was started by the idea that we should develop a formal offer to all stakeholders to respect and promote the contribution of the citizen science. So, and how we could make a declaration from citizen scientists. This is, of course, we need a bottom-up process, because this is, of course, not an authoritarian enterprise. No, this is a democratic citizen enterprise. And so we organized a bottom-up process with the European Citizen Science Association. We organized 5 virtual meetings with the citizen science community. We had on these meetings expert lectures, we had intensive group discussions, so you can see on the slide, we had 21 intensive group discussions. We had 2 discussion drafts of this declaration with collective reviews, and we had an online survey for the title of the declaration. There are 68 votes for the actual title of the declaration, and until today we have 293 signatories of this declaration. So why the declaration is important? So we started with the idea that we need an instrument to enable funders to do the right thing. So we need a bottom-up process, and should include or integrate as many voices as we could collect, and we should include all the different perspectives from all the different projects, citizen science networks, and so on. And we need a framework which could bind all these levels together, and this means that we have integrated a lot of different levels: international, European, and national policymakers, communities from civil society, scientific communities, cultural institutions, and we also need to build up new robust knowledge communities for sustainable development. And this is, of course, a big enterprise, but because this is a formal document for policymakers, we should bring them down to just 3 groups of recommendations. And the first recommendation, or the first group of recommendations, we called harness the benefits of citizen science for the SDGs. The second group is strengthen citizen science and its connections with other communities. And the third group is about strengthen future citizen science systems. So maybe we could say that the main exercise of this declaration is that we should find arguments for a mainstreaming of citizen science as a high potential instrument for research policy, to find first makes research for a lot of good data on one side, and on the other side to empowerment people for a sustainable change. And this brings these 2 things together. This was the main goal of the declaration. So within the declaration, we try to use the use of the declaration is that stakeholders will need or to use it as a practical guide to navigate throughout the 2030 agenda to construct their own portfolio of recommendations and action plans tailored to their specific needs. That means that this declaration is just the beginning or the start of the process for a more or systematic contribution of citizen science for the SDGs. This will be under the understanding that, in so doing, they will ultimately contribute also to global development and impacts. And this will try also the declaration to bind together global, national, and the local level of action. And the declaration or the recommendations of this declaration cover a range of potential action which needs to be described in more detail. That means that this is the start of the process. And that is now that we have the first step was to formulate this format document in the first step, and the next step is that we transform this format document into a living document, and this will be then collect a lot of specific expectations, interests, but also best practice examples, and communicate these to all other from the community and to all other policymakers. So each of the proposed action within the 4 areas of the intervention relates to specific groups of key actors in citizen science from among the following in the EU and the public authorities, citizen science associations and networks, citizen science communities, researchers in academia, private sector, and other research organizations. So what I can now say is what I can now prefer is that we can use the link, and you can also read the content of the declaration. And of course, it is our interest that this paper or this declaration will also communicate to a lot of partners, to a lot of networks, and it should be also convinced a lot of people who are engaged within citizen science or in the SDGs. So far, my short presentation.
Excellent.
And I hope I'm within the time frame.
We're perfectly fine. Thanks a lot, Jörn. Very well. And I pasted also the link to the declaration in the chat window. So, Luis, what do you think? We were not the first to think about this. So a lot of things already going on. There's even an entire declaration that people can read and sign up to. Huh? Fantastic.
Yeah, I know. One of the things that I like is the process is nearly 300 signatures, you know what I mean? And, you know, one of the things that's really interesting is the do the right thing. You know what I mean? That's just that little phrase that I got there about these campaigns, do the right thing. So when you bring civil, scientists, etc., and based on these 3 declarations, and I think that their points, the 3 declarations is really interesting. That is the strengthening the future citizen science communities, which is amazing. I find it like it's really refreshing to hear that.
Brilliant. Yeah, indeed. And also seeing that was created bottom up and not just put there top down for a declaration to sign it. It's brilliant. It's a very nice approach. So with this, maybe we heard already a bit about citizen science and this wonderful declaration, but maybe we want to see some examples of what citizen science actually is. And what would be better to start from Earth observation, which is actually a field that a lot of people from Digital Earth are very enthusiastic about and familiar with.